Hello everyone and welcome to my tutorial on how to use this one graphical language, Alice, for CS245 programming languages at Bryn College. Alright, so I've opened up the language, and whenever you start off, it starts with the opening window for templates, in which the whole point of this language is to create sort of graphical worlds with which to teach computer science students how to program in a much more sort of easy to format, easy to remember way. So for the first part of the video, I'm just going to take you through how to do this and then talk a little bit about more ways to sort of expand the use of Alice into other sorts of methods, what more you can do with it, and the whole point of even using this sort of language. Alright, so to start off with, for templates, we're just going to create something, and I'll be able to show you how to use the language to create this. So whenever you start up, it'll give you this immediately. Let's say we want to create something in which it's kind of like in the desert, so we'll pick sand. Alright, I'm also going to move this so you can see better. There we go. Alright, so we have a world, but I mean, what else are we going to do with it? We should add in objects. So if you look over where the cursor is, you'll see the button for Add Objects. You'll have an entire array sort of menu over here from things in which you can choose. Let's just pick Ancient Egypt just for example's sake. I accidentally double clicked so that'll show up. So you'll have a whole bunch of objects. How about we just add in a pyramid for the heck of it? And now the thing is that you can move these objects as soon as you put them in with your cursor. As you can see, I'm moving this pyramid side to side. You also have a lot of different sort of camera views. Depending upon the arrows that you pick, you'll be able to see more or less, or just in differing ways. Okay, so we have a pyramid now, but you know what? That's kind of boring, and what else are we going to do with it? So let's add in another couple things. For example, how about a sphinx? Kind of make the landscape a little bit more interesting. So I'm going to move it a little bit over here and then move the camera a little bit back so we can see both. Just kind of zoom out a little bit. The only problem I'd say with the camera is that it moves very slowly, but at least in this way you can be sure that you're being careful. And now we want things to move around. So let's add in something like a mummy. And sort of move the camera a little bit back so we can see him. And let's just see what we can do with these three for now. So I'm going to get in a little bit closer so you can see both. So now we've got these three objects in a sort of graphical environment. What are we going to do with them? So this is the heart of basically the Alice language. You can move these things around and in a way sort of learn how to program by playing around with these. So we're going to start with methods, aka like world.myFirstMethod. And we're going to decide what things can do. Now, the pyramid and the sphinx are just kind of there for show. You won't be able to really do much with them. However, for the mummy, as you can see, there is a plus sign around here. You can do quite a few with it. Now, let's say we first want the mummy to be able to turn to face the camera, for example. So we'll move it over in here into the do nothing area, select camera, so you'll look at it. And then we can have him do a couple more things. How about we'll have him say hello. So we'll add this in. They only give you two options with which to speak, but hopefully they'll be expanded upon in the future. So let's just play that for now, see how that works. We'll bring over the window over here. Now, as you can see, the mummy was originally kind of turned a little bit more towards southwest corner. However, he turned around to go see us. But now let's say we want to be able to do those two together, because for right now, these are just kind of separate commands. We can bring in a do together loop, and then bring these both in here. For the moment, since we don't have many other commands, this isn't going to do much except just kind of make it a little bit prettier. That, and be able to show students, if you have one of these loops and you put these two together, it will these two will happen. And as you can see, kind of turn around and said hello to us at the exact same time. However, we should probably do some more. So now let's say we want the mummy to just move towards the Sphinx. Can add this in here. And then let's say also we need something to happen with an if or else loop, kind of make things a little bit more interesting. So how about if true, mummy moves towards the Sphinx. But then what's going to happen? He's the only sort of movable object in the world. Well, we can change that. We can go back to add objects. Let's add in Ra. And now, how about, oh goodness, why do they always put them in these really weird ways? We can move Ra over towards the pyramid. Close objects. And now let's say that if the mummy moves towards the Sphinx, Ra will come over to the mummy to also say hello. So we can go over to Ra and have him move towards the mummy. We can also specify whether he comes towards his upper body or left leg or right leg, but that's a little bit too specific even for us. The entire mummy, sorry. You'll move it over into there. And then have him also say hello. Alright, let's see how well this works. Alright, unfortunately, I forgot. We have him move towards the mummy, but we should really have him kind of go a little bit slower. So instead of move to, we will use move toward. Say like about a meter towards the Sphinx. And then and we don't want this command line anymore, so in order to do that, we'll just toss it. Alright, let's see how well this works this time. Well, unfortunately, a meter was not enough, so our expressions didn't work. So even with 2 meters, this isn't going to quite work. He's not going to be close enough. So let's say we should put him towards 4 meters. And let's try this one again. Oh, you know what the problem was? We put in that Ra was moving in there. We need to change this to the mummy. Well, obviously 4 meters wasn't enough. Let's add in about a couple of more. And now another thing that we should have realized why this thing isn't working. I have an if or else, which means that Ra is not going to move over towards the mummy if the mummy moves towards the Sphinx. So we should have changed this to a while loop, for example. We can move these over here. And then move this into the garbage can. Let's see how this one works this time. And now this is going to continue forever because we didn't exactly put in a condition for them to stop, but I hope you can understand exactly what this means. Now the whole point of Carnegie Mellon, having developed this programming language, is to develop a tool for beginning computer science students to use in studying such as basic forms of programming languages like functions, methods, loops, etc. So what I've shown you so far is kind of basic. It's just getting a few objects to move around a graphical interface on their own and to perform a few simple interactions with one another. Well, it could have continued to make something rather elaborate. I think I have at least managed to get the basic point of how to make a program here thus far. So first things first, something you should have noticed already was that aside from the possibility of naming functions, for example, if you were to create a new system, to keep in mind when considering that Alice was originally designed for computing neophytes. With the way the different commands I've shown you were implemented, it will be pretty much impossible to make any syntax errors. For example, when I try to put a function immediately into a method, for example, this, nothing happens. It is not something that I should be able to do unless I were to place a function inside something like a loop or if else statement. If I were an introductory student just starting out with programming, I might not necessarily realize this and could very easily end up embarking upon a long segment of code that would raise syntax errors once I tried to run it. While many people will hold fast to the idea that people can only learn through their own mistakes, I would play devil's advocate here and insist that this is a far better model to work off of for beginners at the very least. If we were to return to the previous example of attempting to incorrectly insert a function into the method here, for example, remaining to a certain distance to the left of something, then as a beginner, I would be able to realize that obviously something is not working here and should try something else. At this point, I would be able to immediately pinpoint where I went wrong and fix my code from there, rather than have to guess and gain a lot of stress along the way in attempting to determine why my code does not work some 20 lines and as 20 lines and as many minutes later. It also functions as a reminder of sorts, and in so doing kind of sets up a better framework for learning. So as to how to better expand use of this language further, that really kind of depends upon what exactly you choose to do with it. At its most basic, Alice exists to build graphic-based worlds with which to learn and teach some fundamental segments of programming, although I'm certain that it is not merely limited towards that either. For example, you could build and design some of your own environments and objects to add to this language's libraries. For example, if we were to go back to objects, some of these have been designed by different people. For example, Mawr for the Sphinx over here as opposed to the Pharaoh. At its most, by example, you could build and design some of your own environments and add objects to the language's libraries, sort of expansion. But on the other hand, were you to think of developing a game, you would not necessarily have to worry about using other programs with which to work on the graphics. This opens up some opportunities with which to not only expand Alice, but also to potentially integrate it with other languages that focus on the elements of programming, such as gameplay, music, etc. Well, thank you for watching through my brief tutorial, and if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. See you later. Have a great day.